Hello and welcome back to the Enough Mom podcast. I'm Jennifer Bryant. I'll be your host. Today we are on episode 117, Compassionate Parenting, a Better Way Forward. Before we jump in, if you are a new listener here, I just want to say welcome. This is a space where we untangle the hard, the messy parts of motherhood. No shame, no blame, just honesty and encouragement. Today, we're going to talk about something that I've been sitting on for a while now, and I think it's time to say it out loud. This will be an introduction to a much larger, wider discussion that I also want to bring some of my friends in on, to interview, to get their opinion and expert perspectives. But as a mother of 17 years now, I can tell you I've seen many cycles of types of parenting come along, and it really brings out interesting discussion based on people's past, based on people's feelings about discipline. So we're going to cover some interesting things today. With all the social media noise out there, it can feel like there is a war being raged around parenting styles, parenting approaches. One expert says this, another says that, and your auntie and uncle over there say something altogether different. Well, I want to clear up some confusion about what people have labeled as gentle parenting or permissive parenting versus the authoritarian, however you've heard about it before. In today's episode, I want to offer you something different. Not a side to pick, but what I think is a better framework altogether. And by the end of this episode, you're going to see why it matters and why I believe it's the approach that actually lines up with faith and science. So let's get into it. Let's start by talking about the parenting wars. So if you've been on social media at all, or maybe it's a church small group or a mom's group, you've probably noticed the tension around the conversation of how to parent children, or more specifically, how to discipline children. On one side, you've got gentle parenting. And listen, lots of good things have come from this idea of gentle parenting. It's continued a conversation for parents on how to understand emotional regulation, which is definitely a good thing. It's opened up conversations about how we talk to our kids, how we validate their feelings, and how we create safe places for them to grow. But on the other side, there can feel like a huge backlash. Some parents feel like gentle parenting has gone too far. Some parents are like, I need my kids to be tough because the real world will not be gentle with them. I don't want to coddle them. I don't want to allow weakness and then allow people to overtake them. And while those ideas are valid and they're valid sources of either fear or frustration, I feel like both sides are coming from the standpoint of I don't want my child to enter the world unprepared, whether that's unprepared with certain strengths or how to handle their feelings in such a harsh world. And this is where it really starts to get interesting for me and where it kind of starts to hurt my heart a little bit. Even some conservative Christians are speaking out against gentle parenting, saying that it's not biblical, as if being gentle with your children contradicts scripture, as if the spare the rod, spoil the child idea, which, by the way, is not even a direct Bible verse, means that harshness is the godly approach. As a parent, as a Christian woman, I kind of want to set the record straight today, because here's what I think is actually happening. I think we've created a false dichotomy. We've turned parenting into an either or. Either you're gentle and permissive, either you're gentle and permissive, or you're harsh and preparing your kids for reality. Either you validate their feelings or you teach them to toughen up. And I want to challenge that because I don't think those are the only two options. And we can't walk around seeing the world that way. It's such a rigid place to live. And human beings don't follow that kind of rigidity in our behavior, in the way that our brains work, in the way that we were made to adapt to society, to relationships, and even for mothers as leaders of our children. We don't have to see it one strong way or the other, because our children, human beings, are wonderfully and beautifully complex. And we get to approach the nuances of behavior and responsiveness and language and tone in ways that fit the person, that fit the relationship, that fit the family values. And that does not require the Bible to be superimposed or taken out of context in order to fit our traditional idea of leadership. Because what ends up happening is more coercive control than openness to hearing and seeing a human being grow the way that they were meant to grow. But before we talk about what compassionate parenting actually is, I want to name something that I think is driving all of this conflict, and that is fear. Underneath the social media debates, underneath the blog posts and the parenting books and the, well, my parents did this and I turned out fine. Underneath all of it is the deep, deep fear that we are not going to be good parents. Think about it. Whether you're on the gentle side of parenting or on the tough love side, the emotion driving you is the same. It's fear. The sooner we can be honest with ourselves, the sooner we can figure this out and not live in so much tension. If you lean toward gentleness, you might be afraid that you're going to irreparably damage your kids by being too harsh. I see this with parents who come from very controlling households, and they happen to be the child who is very sensitive and will not become their parent. So they're doing everything they can not to ever yell, not to ever give harsh consequences because they're afraid of becoming what they're trying to avoid. And that's just natural human logic, really. You're afraid of repeating what was done to you. You're afraid of the yelling, the shame, and the disconnection. It is natural to want to avoid those things. And if you're leaning towards firmness, you may be afraid that you're raising kids who can't handle the real world. Maybe you were bullied as a kid. Maybe you didn't have the tools you needed when you were that age to handle the harsh realities of the world. Maybe you had a rude awakening when you got to middle school or high school and you didn't feel prepared. It's understandable that as a parent, you might have a firm take on parenting, that you don't want your kids to go through the harshness that you went through. It's understandable, and it's natural to want to equip your kids to avoid the bullies, the harshness, the unforgiving reality of humanity. I get it. As is the case for many people, you may be afraid as a parent that you're raising weak people who won't be able to stand up for themselves, stand up for their beliefs, their values, their country, whatever you're trying to instill in them. And maybe you're afraid that they will blame you later for not preparing them now. And here, right here, is the struggle of too much and not enough. It's the exact tension that I created this podcast to address, because so many of us are living in that space of, am I doing too much for my kids? Am I not doing enough? Am I not preparing them enough for the real world? Parents, I think about this all the time. My kids just turned 16 and 17. They are on their way out. Maybe not out of our house immediately, but they're on their way to owning their own life. We are no longer legally responsible for them when they're 18. Will we be here for them? Will we be present to guide them? Of course. Yes, and of course. But we do let go of a lot of the reins at 18 and whatever else they want us to let go of, really. Of course, we will do more episodes about the different age ranges, when to let go, how to approach this idea of independence in your kids as they get older, and what our brains are doing when our relational ties are too tight and when they're maybe not tight enough. It speaks a lot to what it takes to develop a secure person, someone who operates in a secure mindset, knowing that they're both being taken care of and knowing that they can trust themselves to problem solve for their own life. But this black and white thinking of I'm too much or I'm not enough is not going to serve us well, and it's not going to serve our kids well. And if you're a Christian, it's not what God asks of us either. Now, before I introduce compassionate parenting, I want to clear something up because I feel like people are confusing gentle parenting with permissive parenting, and they are not the same thing. Permissive parenting is when there are no expectations, no follow-through, and no boundaries. Basically, the child runs the house, and the parent is just along for the ride. That's what it looks like to be permissive. You're giving the child permission to lead the way. Gentle parenting at its core is all about boundaries. It's about maintaining boundaries and expectations while doing so with the emotional awareness and respect for the child's age and stage. It's not about letting your kid do whatever they want. It's about holding the boundary. It's about your response as the parent to your tone and really the connection that you're trying to maintain underneath that boundary. It's about the connection under the correction. But what has happened is that the loudest critics have lumped these two styles together. And now a whole generation of parents thinks that gentle means weak. And you guys, that's just not accurate. So if you've been feeling guilty for being kind to your kids, and if someone has made you feel like you're failing because you dared to apologize to your child for something that was clearly an inappropriate reaction on your part, maybe, I want you to hear me say this clearly. That is not weakness. That is strength. That is leadership, to lean down and to attempt to see what's going on underneath the behavior. In past episodes, I've said it takes courage to apologize to your children, to recognize where you fall short, where you can acknowledge your own humanness, because that's modeling. It's modeling humility and leadership. And allowing your children to see that in you is actually a very beautiful thing. You don't need to lose your strength when you do that. Your vulnerability does not mean that you lose your authority. That's not what happens. It can seem like it when you're not used to being vulnerable, or if you're not used to apologizing in general. It's actually a very courageous leadership step. I want to share something that really changed the way that I see parenting and children in general, because this is where my thinking started to shift in a very profound way. When I was training to be a preschool director, I learned so much more about children's growth and development than I ever learned training to be a public school teacher. And I say that with no shade toward the public school system. I taught in the public schools. I believe in public education, but training is different. Early childhood education holds a special place in my heart for this reason. The principles of early childhood education help us to understand which micro behaviors are typical for certain points of growth and development in young children. We learned about the ages and stages and developmentally appropriate practices. Say it with me, DAP, developmentally appropriate practice. My professor would be so proud of me that I still remember that, yes, because I use it all the time. I have to. It changed my life and my heart as a parent even. My kids were preschoolers while I was in this training, and it took, I think it was about 2 years or so. And I was working on the job. I had just opened a brand new Christian preschool with our church, under our church. And I was the one who had to do all the training and understand the laws and work with the facilities to make sure that everything was safe and appropriate for young children. But more than that, I was able to dive into the very real, very professional practices of early childhood development. So my professors taught me, look, Jen, instead of looking at a 3-year-old who's melting down and going, what is wrong with that child? Instead, you learn to think, this is exactly what a 3-year-old brain does. This is actually developmentally appropriate for a 3-year-old to be throwing a tantrum when another 3-year-old takes his toy. Now, how should I respond? That is the shift, parents. You go from what is wrong with you to what is happening with you. And that changed everything for me. But the training didn't stop there. I learned about how the whole family unit works together to help form the development of a young child. I learned why parents tend to make the choices they make. Sometimes it's based on culture. Sometimes it's based on religion. Sometimes it's based on community think and community values. Many times our reactions are based on our own families of origin, how we were raised, what was modeled for us, and what wasn't modeled for us. Then you layer on the current stressors at home, the schedules, the jobs, sometimes multiple jobs, the financial pressure, the marriage dynamics, the exhaustion, and all of the coping mechanisms that adults develop to manage all of that stress. All of that tends to get poured out onto our children when we are not properly emotionally regulated. If we haven't been taught how to manage our feelings, either in practice or through observation, then it's going to have a wider negative effect on our children. It will. It will. We project our feelings onto our kids unless we know how to look at them, observe, breathe, and decide how to respond. See, these are the kinds of things that I hope to normalize for parents whenever they bring up a conversation with me with discipline and communicating with children. Because when we understand the full picture, when we understand what's typical for the child and what is driving our experiences and what is driving our own responses, everything changes. We start parenting from intention instead of reaction. And when we do that, we can start to change our children's nervous system responses, one calm, thoughtful reaction at a time. So here's where compassionate parenting comes in. And I want to be really clear about what I mean, because this is not just a rebranding of gentle parenting and slapping a Christian sticker on it or something. It's something deeper than that. Because you know what? Compassion starts with you, the parent. It starts with your health, your awareness, your willingness to look at your own stuff so that you can show up for your kids from a place of wholeness instead of woundedness or brokenness. Compassion at its root is looking at another person through the eyes of understanding and love instead of fear and defensiveness. And when we apply that to parenting, we get to see our kids for who they actually are. It's beautiful. When we see our kids for who they actually are and not who we wish they would be, not who they may be in 20 years, but for who they are right now. Even on their worst day this week, with all of the stressors and all of the behaviors, with their brain's current stage of development, we might see a kid who is not annoying us, but as a kid who is having a difficult time and needs the tools to manage where they are right now. And you get to be the loving parent to help them with that. When we operate from a place of seeing our children clearly, we get to come into their lives and guide them with compassion. With boundaries, yes. With correction, yes. But not from a place of fear and anxiety, from a place of love and understanding. You can still be firm, but you can also still be kind. And when you have a heart of compassion for your 3-year-old, your 13-year-old, your 17-year-old, because they're having big feelings, and you get to just think, I wonder what is going on with them, instead of they're being disrespectful, they're being offensive to me. What would these other parents think? What would their grandmother think? We don't need to bring all those things in. All there needs to be is you and the child, your understanding connected with where they are and who they are. And I promise you that when people feel seen, their behavior changes. See, the difference is that gentle parenting focuses on the child's experiences. Compassionate parenting starts with the parent's posture. Compassion asks, where am I right now? What's going on inside of me? Am I responding out of love, or is this fear? Is this wisdom, or is it actually my own unresolved stuff? And friend, I want to be honest with you. It is hard work. It is not easy work to look at your own triggers, your own patterns, your own family of origin wounds. That's not the easy road. But guess what? That's what being a parent is. That's what children bring out of you. This is the big change that raising other humans does in you. It forces you to look at your own mess. But when we do this hard work, we can stop passing down the things that were handed to us. We can finally break cycles and build something new. And that's exciting. Okay, I know some of you are thinking, okay, Jen, that's great and everything, but are you just going to talk about psychology and behavioral science and early ed the whole time? Where does the faith part come in? All right, I'm going to give it to you. And this is the part I feel strongly about. I believe that faith and science are not at odds. They are not enemies. They are both gifts from the same God. The God who created our children also created our amazing brains. He designed the stages of development, or what we discovered later are measurable stages of development. He created our capacity for emotional regulation. When we study child development, we're studying his design. And when we read scripture, we discover a God who parents us, his children, with patience, with correction, yes, with discipline, absolutely, but also with compassion, with tenderness, with a long-suffering love that holds the boundary while never letting go of the relationship. That is the model. That's what we're after. Not perfection, not getting it right every time, but a posture of compassion that says, I see you, I love you, and I'm going to guide you, not because I'm afraid of what you'll become, but because I'm committed to who you are. And friend, that's why I'm excited to share something with you today. Because of this conversation, this beginning of many conversations, what we'll be talking about, I've poured my thoughts into a resource that I feel like is going to benefit many families. I've got a new ebook coming out. It's called Compassionate Parenting, Where Faith Meets Science, a guide for Christian parents seeking a better way. I wrote it for the mom who's been told that gentleness equals permissiveness. I wrote it for the dad who's been shamed for apologizing to his kids. I wrote it for the parent who loves their children and loves Jesus and is just tired of being told that you can't honor both with the same parenting approach. Because you can. And this ebook walks you through what it looks like practically in your home with your kids, in the middle of the chaos, in the middle of teenage eye rolls, whatever you're up against today. This works. This framework can work for you. Now, this book is up for pre-order right now. It's not quite ready to roll out, but it's open for pre-order, and I'm putting the link in the show notes. So please click on that, get on the list, and let me know that you want me to send you this book when it's ready. But in the meantime, I'll send you a freebie instead. I'll basically send you a short list of the main points of this book so you can get an idea for where we're going. So go to jennifer-bryant.com. Go to the menu, look under books, and you'll see the option there for pre-order. The new book is called Compassionate Parenting, Where Faith Meets Science. Stop parenting from fear and start parenting from compassion. Okay, friend, that's what I've got for you today. I won't go any longer because there's more great stuff to come. Make sure that you are subscribed to this channel. Wherever you are listening or watching, please subscribe. And if this episode hit home with you today, share it with a friend. Click share, put it on social media, copy the URL address and click it into your socials. The message will go as far as you want to take it. Make sure you're subscribed to my email list at jennifer-bryant.com so that you don't miss an episode and you get all the updates on goodies coming out. Remember, Mama, you are not too much and you are not enough. You are exactly the parent your kids need. And compassion is not weakness. It's the bravest thing you'll ever do. I'll see you next time.